Hello, everyone. I'm Town Manager Kevin Mizikar, and it's a pleasure to be able to go through the October 17th, 2022 Special Town Meeting warrant with you. We have several staff members here today to walk through some of the details of the 13-article warrant that will be presented. Again, the meeting will be held October 17th, 2022 at the Oak Middle School in person. There's a couple important events prior to the special town meeting itself where you would be able to learn more about the articles that are being presented and understand how the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen think about the articles that have been presented in the warrant. So first, on October 6, 2022 at 7 p.m., at the Shrewsbury Public Library in Room A, the big conference room there, the Finance Committee will meet and hold a public hearing where all members of the public would be able to ask questions about any of the warrant articles under review. Again, that meeting will be held October 6, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the Shrewsbury Public Library. On October 7th, we will be mailing detailed packets out to all town meeting members that include backup materials associated with the various warrant articles. And on October 11th, the Select Board will meet at their regular time, 7 p.m. in their meeting room here at the Town Hall, where they will vote on recommendations relative to the warrant articles. And then again, finally, on October 17th, 2022 at the Oak Middle School, the special town meeting will be held. As I previously mentioned, there's 13 warrant articles under consideration. The first article, Article 1 that is on the warrant, would be seeking amendments to the general bylaws associated with the dog control bylaw. That is Article 14 of the general bylaws. It's a pleasure to have with us today Animal Control Officer Keith Elms. Keith has identified some needs to make adjustments to the general bylaws. So welcome, Keith. Just talk a little bit about what needs to be changed within the bylaws and how that will help you do your job a little bit better.
Sure. So the first proposal I had was just based on the fact that our dog control law has not been updated in a number of years, was within Section 5 dealing with disposition of unclaimed dogs, and that would be to change the holding period for an unclaimed dog from 10 days, where it's currently at, to 7 days. This would align Shrewsbury with Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 151A, which was amended several years ago and reduced the state requirement for holding an unclaimed dog to 7 days. This would align Shrewsbury with that current state law and also reduce kenneling fees owed by the town to the shelters which hold our unclaimed dogs.
Great. So these are dogs that are picked up and don't have identification, aren't licensed. We can't really understand who owns them, so we hold them. What happens after the 7 days?
After the 7 days, whatever shelter we use, which is predominantly the Animal Rescue League in Worcester, if nobody claims that dog, ownership will be transferred over to the Animal Rescue League. At that point, the dogs will be vetted and put up for adoption.
Great. So I think there's a second part to this where you're looking to add a new section to the general bylaws to bring our bylaws more consistent with the state laws. Is that right?
That's correct. All animal control's authority to enforce state law comes from Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Sections 136A through 174F. And while the town, we currently have some of those state statutes within our bylaws, we don't have them all, and there have been multiple laws added even within the past decade, and adopting just the entirety of those sections into our bylaw, it would give, myself as the animal control officer, me being a civilian employee in the town, not sworn law enforcement, it would give me a broader scope of authority and be able to operate in a more efficient manner.
Great. So with this in our general bylaws, then you can enforce that, and we just don't have to rely upon police officers. So
correct.
That's a great efficiency. Okay. Anything else you want to add, Keith, or is that what we're looking for town meeting to consider?
That's just what we're looking for.
Great. Thank you so much. We
right.
appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Keith. So at this point, we'll move to the second article that's under consideration on the warrant, which is another amendment to the general bylaws. And for this, we'll have current cemetery program manager Justin Dobson and DPW Director Jeff Howland come up and talk a little bit about their proposed changes to Article 10 of the General Bylaws, which is associated with handicap parking. So Justin and Jeff, welcome. Justin, maybe you could start off by telling us a little bit about the intent behind this article and what we're asking town meeting to consider.
Absolutely. So Article 2 is requesting town meeting members to increase the current handicap fine amount from $100 to $300, which is outlined in Article 10 of the town's general bylaws. The intent and the logic behind this request is the initial $100 would continue to be deposited into local receipts, so there'd be no fiscal impact on the revenue the town is collecting. The additional $200 would be allocated to the Commission on Disabilities to be deposited into a special account, and that revenue would be utilized to fund accessibility initiatives in town. So it's really intended to promote accessibility and to make the town as inclusive as possible.
Great. Jeff, what other changes are we trying to adopt through Article 3?
So currently, our Article 10 was based upon Mass General Law, Chapter 40, that the town adopted in 1984. Since that time, there were several added or additional sections to the Mass General Law and promulgated what is called 521 CMR, which is the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board. The old Chapter 40, description of handicap parking has been changed due to the federal ADA requirements and 521 CMR, which is the Massachusetts requirements, which includes the number of parking spaces required in a parking lot. It also changes the aisle width, et cetera, and we want to bring the current Article 10 into conformance with Mass General Law.
Okay, great. Thank you. So it looks like we have the opportunity to utilize resources generated from violations to help general accessibility challenges throughout the town and just modernize this section of our bylaw. So we appreciate both of you bringing this initiative forward and further discussions on it with the Finance Committee. Anything else that you want to add, or is that pretty much it?
No, I think Justin is spearheading this, working with the Commission on Disabilities, and this is an opportunity to actually change both of the sections within the article.
Great. Thank you both. Jeff, we'll see you back here for a couple other articles. So Justin, thank you so much for this initiative. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kristen Lass. I'm the Assistant Town Manager for Community Development and Health and Human Services, and I'll pick up with Article 3 by asking Mr. Mizikar to describe a little bit about this article, which seeks to amend our general bylaw, yet another general bylaw change, the Town of Shrewsbury Tree Bylaw.
Yes, so Article 3 of the warrant is an adjustment to the Town of Shrewsbury Tree Bylaw. The tree bylaw was put into place at the annual town meeting in 2022, so just this recent May. Whenever we pass a general bylaw, it is reviewed by the state's Attorney General's office for compliance with all state laws. Unfortunately, there was a error in the way we submitted or established the fines associated with this with the original tree bylaw. We had originally set the fine to be a maximum of $500. State prohibits us from setting that to be anything above a maximum of $300. So we simply need to reinsert a section associated with violations and penalties. So that's what we're looking to do through this article. No other changes to this section of the bylaw.
Great, and this article, again, this bylaw was adopted fairly recently, so many town meeting members will be familiar with this bylaw.
Yes.
Great. Moving on to Article 4, we are suggesting several changes to the fiscal year 23 budget based upon what we now know related to revenue and other types of budgetary matters. Mr. Mizikar, would you like to explain the adjustments noted in Article 4?
Sure. So Article 4 has 6 proposed changes to the operating budget. 2 of those changes will be adding additional revenue or requiring additional revenue to cover the expenses. And then the other 4 are simply transfers among department line items, which we are not able to do from a staffing level since it requires town meetings consideration. So first and foremost, we establish a revenue model each and every year based on the best information that we have when we go to the annual town meeting. But 2 primary things change each and every year in the lead up to and after town meeting that we just don't have the ability to use when we get to town meeting. The first is the state budget. Often the state budget is passed sometime in June or July as their fiscal year starts in July. And of course, state aid is a major source of revenue, actually the second highest revenue category outside of real estate taxation. And that came in more favorable than what was in the House budget whenever we went to the annual town meeting. So we'll look to take advantage of those adjustments. And then second, new growth is certified on June 30th. That is things that were constructed from after January 1st through June 30th. So with that certification, we now have a better understanding of what new growth is. And because of all the development that everyone is seeing in town, we do have a higher new growth number than we estimated. So those funds will be dedicated to 2 initiatives. The first is increasing the Finance Committee's reserve fund, which is used to cover unanticipated extraordinary expenses that pop up throughout the course of the year. The Finance Committee has control over those funds. The main reason we're seeking to increase this line item is because something else that everyone is familiar with, which is inflation. So there have been a number of goods and services that we contract with entities throughout the course of the year. And those expenses have increased, so we want to make sure that we have appropriate resources necessary to conduct normal business operations, whether that's in various utilities or other aspects of the organization. We just don't want to fall short because of inflationary measures. And the second is the debt service associated with the final borrowing for the police station construction project. Now, we're going to use the general tax levy for this. And the main reason we're going to use the general tax levy for this as opposed to using the tax-exempt tax levy is because we're able to keep the tax rate lower and tax bills lower if we use this fund. So these dollars would have been raised regardless. So we don't have to raise taxes additionally from what we understood at the annual town meeting in May. So this is $106,937.50 that will be used to cover debt service interest payment within fiscal year 23 while holding the tax rate what it otherwise would have been. So it's a main initiative of the Board of Selectmen to always manage the tax rate and keep tax bills as low as possible. So by not using the exempted tax levy, we're doing just that. And then we have several other transfers within departments. So town meeting establishes the budget and they provide resources to individual departments for personnel expenses and then general operating expenses. And at the staff level, we're not able to transfer or intermingle those funds once they're established by town meeting. So in all instances here, we're transferring funds either from operating expenses to the personnel line items or just the opposite from expenses to personnel items. So public buildings is an area that we're seeking to move funds from personnel to expenses rather than utilize part-time staff. We are going to use contracted staff to perform some of those duties. The second area is transferring from several different divisions within the Department of Public Works to the fleet maintenance division and that departmental budget in order to be able to accelerate the establishment of the fleet maintenance division without having a long-term impact on the budget. And we'll be hiring a foreman's position with $37,143 for part of fiscal 23. Within the town manager's budget, we are seeking to move funds from the IT budget into the town manager's personnel line items to cover the salary of the business systems analyst that has been within the budget within IT since the start of fiscal year 22, so over one full year at this time. However, it just makes a lot more sense given the scope of work that this position has taken on and how the position operates within the organization to have that within the town manager's budget. It provides a better relationship to financial transparency so residents can better understand how we're spending funds and where we're spending them from. And then finally, we'd look to transfer $4,180 from operating expenses to salaries or personnel costs within the library. This would be due to some staffing changes and the use of consultants where we had originally planned. So that's really Article 4. We're looking to make a series of changes. In total, it's increasing the budget by less than or a little greater than $180,000. But again, because it's all from the general tax levy, it will not have an upward pressure on the tax rate or residents' tax bills.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mizikar. Moving on, we have Article 5, which is another financial article related to the General Stabilization Fund. Could you give a little bit of an update on what you're looking to move in this article?
Sure. So the General Stabilization Fund is the town's rainy day fund. It's our reserve for emergency expenses, and we have a policy goal to have the General Stabilization Fund at 5% of the total annual operating budget. We currently have about 2 3/4% in reserves through the General Stabilization Fund. This aims to move us a little bit closer to our goal. We would propose the addition of $47,810, which would build on the balance of $3,811,000 that's currently in there. I do, and I should have mentioned at the outset of the prior article, whenever we're considering financial changes to the operating budget or some of these other articles, these are subject to change, and we are providing the best information that we have today, which happens to be September 30th. So as we kind of do a final pass or final few passes through and understand what the needs are, if anything pops up between now and the October town meeting, we would alter some of these numbers. We're obviously bound to keep a balanced budget, so overall expenditures will remain rather consistent with what we're talking about, but there may be slight modifications, so we'll just highlight any of those whenever we get to the Finance Committee or town meeting itself.
Great. So the purposes of today's presentation, we're going to bundle together Articles 6, 7, and 8. These will all be discussed as separate articles at the town meeting. They are additional financial matters, but for specific projects. Do you want to run through Articles 6 through 8 to let the public know what we're seeking to do here?
Sure. Article 6 provides $7,100 to supplement a state earmark that came through the state budget. That was garnered by Senator Moore and Representative Kane to fund comprehensive physicals of all Shrewsbury firefighters. The firefighting community unfortunately faces a much higher risk of a variety of cancers, and it is our goal to baseline at a very detailed level all of our current firefighters to help them with their personal health and understand any on-the-job exposures and risks that they may experience throughout their career. So this $7,100 would come from the tax levy and will be used in partnership with the $24,500 received through the state budget. Article 7 seeks $20,000 for the replacement of a police cruiser. Whenever Unfortunately, earlier this calendar year, we had a police cruiser that was involved in a motor vehicle accident, and it was totaled. There's two things that drive us to need this $20,000 to replace that cruiser. First and foremost, it's very rare that we total a cruiser. So when we insure them, since they only have a useful life of about 3 years, we insure them at actual cash value instead of replacement cost. That keeps our insurance premiums lower and really suits our needs best. But in this rare instance, we do need $20,000 to supplement the insurance funds that we got from our insurer to cover the cost of the new cruiser. The second part of that is that this was a general conventional internal combustion engine, and the new cruisers that we were purchasing are a little bit more expensive than that as they're hybrids. So those two factors require us to request this $20,000 to replace that cruiser, which is a critical frontline vehicle in our fleet for the police department. And then finally, Article 8 seeks $33,500 to fund a study for unified dispatching, staffing, and operations. So many members of the community are likely aware that when you call for police services, a police dispatcher interacts with you, and when you call for fire-related services, a fire dispatcher services you. And the fire dispatching is conducted out of the fire station by a firefighter, academy-trained firefighter, and police is through a trained police dispatcher at the police station. As we move into the new police station, facility was built to accommodate unified dispatching, which will provide efficiency in our dispatching operations, allow one dispatching facility, primary dispatching facility for the town instead of two, and also free up one academy-trained firefighter from obligations of dispatching. So in order to do that most efficiency, we're seeking the support of an outside consultant to develop both a staffing plan and an operations plan. Many communities struggle whenever they place the responsibility of dispatching either under the police chief or fire chief, because those are two obviously equal and important departments. And we are seeking that the consultant consider a standalone emergency communications dispatching department or division within the town that would allow for a more appropriate governance model. So both the police and fire chief have equal input into how dispatching operations are provided to their departments. So those are Articles 6, 7, and 8. They're all associated with the request of taxation that was identified after the May annual town meeting. And all are critical for the operations, both for the rest of this year and for longer-term matters throughout the town. So that actually takes us to Article 9, which I will have Assistant Department of Public Works Director Keith Baldinger come up and talk a little bit about this project, which is seeking $185,000 for some HVAC improvements. So Keith, welcome. Can you talk a little bit about this project for us?
Sure, thank you. So this project is at the Floral Street Elementary School, and it is to replace 5 HVAC units that are in various states of disrepair. They service the administrative area, the media center, and the classroom, approximately 15,000 square feet of the building. We put this project out to bid this year, and pricing came in around $327,000. So we are seeking $185,000 to offset our current FY23 capital request of $100,000. We also have a utility incentive from Selco for this, who have been involved since the beginning. And so we're asking for $185,000 to complete that project. The new system will be fully electrified heat pump system. We'll use no fossil fuels, and will heat and cool the spaces with much less energy than we currently use. And if it's approved, we will rebid the project this fall for a summer 2023 completion for that.
Great. So, Keith, in general, whenever you look at, you said less energy use, but when you look at the utility cost, do you think there would be a savings, or would it be about the same?
I think it will be definitely be a savings. 'Cause,
Okay.
you know, we benefit from Selco's low electrical rates for sure.
Okay.
So, and it's a much more efficient system for heating and cooling.
Great.
Uses, like I said, much less energy.
Great. And you said you'd like to complete this project during next summer, obviously, when school's out. Do you think that given the supply chain challenges and getting a contractor on board, do you think you'll be able to complete that? Is this something within?
Yes,
that
and
realm?
I think that's part of the reason why we're asking for it at this town meeting.
Okay.
Because we have a 4 to 5 month lead time for equipment. So if we have this out for bid after town meeting, that gives us plenty of time to, for contractors to get the equipment in place by next June when school's out.
Oh, that's
Start
great.
the project.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's Article 9, seeking $185,000 in additional funding to supplement capital initiative that was originally set forth in the spring. Thanks for staying on top of that, Keith, and I'm sure folks may have questions for you at some upcoming meetings, so look
Thank
forward
you.
to having you there. Thank you. That brings us to Article 10 of the warrant, which is funding a primary address table project for the town. And this project has been led internally over the last little more than a year by Principal Assessor Ruth Anderson. Ruth, welcome. If you could just provide an overview of this project, what a primary address table is, and how it will help town operations, that'd be great.
Sure, good morning. So this is to address challenges that are not unique to Shrewsbury. They're being faced by communities across the Commonwealth, where different departments have developed their own workflows and procedures to assign and collect addresses, and that information isn't always consistent across departments. So what we're looking for is to create one central repository to manage and create every address in town.
Okay. So how do we do it now? Like you said, it would be a central tool that we would use. That leads me to believe we probably do things on a decentralized basis right now.
Historically, we have started to try to change that, so it is more of one process led by one department. But in the past, building has created their addresses that meet their needs and their programming. Selco has done the same. DPW has done the same. So one address, one location in town could have several different identifiers, which make it inconsistent across the board, and the softwares don't always play nicely together when we need to consolidate things. So this primary address table will create a unique identifier for every property in town, and then that will be shared across the board so that everybody's looking at the same thing.
So Ruth, I'm privy to knowing that this, hasn't just popped up in the last couple weeks and something that we've been thinking about. I know it's been going on for quite some time. Can you talk a little bit about the preparatory work that has brought us here and other funding sources that we have used thus far to put us in this position for this request?
Sure. So we used $7,000 of ARPA funding to prepare a needs assessment, and that was completed in January. We've started to follow the recommendations of that project and implement some changes, but we're only scratching the surface. So if this project is approved at town meeting, we will hire a consulting company that will help us not just create the table, but develop processes that we can use across the board in Shrewsbury to maintain consistency and avoid things that we are seeing as problems now.
Great. So in general, this is not very public facing, but if I think about public safety and things like that, it will certainly have a benefit, whether it's managing building permits and making sure we have proper records on hand every time someone makes a change that requires a building permit, or even other aspects of public safety when things get fed into our various systems throughout the course of the town. So a lot of internal efficiencies that have an indirect benefit to the public. So anything else that you wanted to add about addressing or this project?
No, just that we need some parameters so that we know where to go and how to do things in a way that's most efficient and most public serving, even though it's kind of on the background. So that when a developer comes in, they're not assigning a street that's very similar to a street we already have, and that numbering is in order and things like that. It's just, overall, it's going to help us out.
Great. So this is a request of $100,000 from taxation to cover the cost of this primary address table system that we'll be developing. So thank you so much, Ruth, for your leadership on this project and support here. Thanks for the info.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Article 11 is a continuation of a project that really has been underway for several years, which is to fund the cemetery expansion design. Obviously, I think it's been rather well known throughout the community that we're running out of space at the town's Mountain View Cemetery that has really been in operations since at least the maybe the 1700s. As we run out of space, we're obligated to provide burial options for our residents under the general laws. So welcome back Department of Public Works Director Jeff Howland to talk about Article 11, which is funding cemetery expansion design.
Back in 1976, as most people know, the town purchased what is now known as Prospect Park, or 65 Prospect Street, at their special town meeting, and at the same time set up a committee called the Masonic Home Study Committee. That committee, which presented to the 1979 annual town meeting recommendation that that property be used for multiple uses. And one of those uses was the future expansion of the cemetery. Since then, the town has had several studies looking at that for whether it was parkland, open space, and for the future expansion of the cemetery. And with the cemetery currently now only having approximately 157 graves left to sell, the town is looking at making the expansion across the street at part of the lower portion of Prospect Park. The town has hired a consultant who did a concept plan, which was the funding was approved at the 2019 annual town meeting. And we have received a concept plan which we will base the proposed project on. We have had several public meetings, which unfortunately were virtual during 2020 and 2021 to review the proposal for the cemetery, which is being proposed at this point, not as a conventional cemetery like Mountain View Cemetery is now, but more of a passive open space type cemetery with meandering graves tucked within the existing landscape, maintaining trees in certain locations and some of the other topographic features such as rocks or boulders or other things that are aesthetically pleasing, and those will remain.
Great. Jeff, talk about the kind of the physical layout. How does this cemetery plan? How does it impact any of the area that's most actively used as the park right now? And are there any amenities that would actually benefit the use of the park that would be included in this design work?
So we do know that access currently to the existing Prospect Park amenities at the top of the hill up near the water treatment plant, or the water tanks, parking is very limited at that park. So part of the proposal is to provide a parking lot which is located just beyond the existing gate into Prospect Park. Also, access to that park from, say, Prospect Street or even from Boylston Street, there will be a sidewalk, there'll be a walking path between the entrance to the cemetery park and the Prospect Park entrance to allow for that continuity from the existing sidewalk system along Prospect Street.
Great. And as far as what we know about the design right now, what was that horizon? How long would it, how long in terms of years do we think this would provide for cemetery services?
So the current proposal, which is what we are considering Phase 1, will be a cemetery that would last the town of Shrewsbury approximately 50 years.
Okay, great. All right, so right now, 185 graves left at Mountain View Cemetery, and we're only selling those on an immediate need basis, which means, you know, after the passing of a family member or an individual who would otherwise be eligible. So I just did some quick math. You know, that's less than 0.5% of the total population as far as graves to population goes. So it's much less than the standard we'd like. We'd like people to be able to prepare for their long-term final resting place on a more planful and thoughtful way than having to wait to see if there would be something available after their passage. So this will be a great opportunity not only to help residents in their planning, but also to meet our obligations under the general laws and providing final resting places for individuals. So, Jeff, I don't think we talked about it. What's the budget ask for this, and then what would come next after this design work?
So the current budget for the design is approximately, or we're asking for $200,000. That includes the design, the permitting, and the bid documents to move forward with to put it out on the street in the spring after probably the annual town meeting in May.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Jeff. So this is a long-time project, stretching back even to the 70s when this land was acquired. So look forward to continuing the work on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to our final two articles, which are both associated with land transactions, and I'll have Assistant Town Manager Lass talk a little bit about Article 12, which is the acquisition of a portion of 32 Old Colony Drive by gift.
Thank you very much. We've been approached by the owner of 32 Old Colony Drive, which is a large parcel of land off Old Colony Drive, and they wish to gift a portion of that land, approximately 3.5 acres, to the town of Shrewsbury to be designated as open space. What is unique about this gift offering and about the land is that it actually abuts a 3.5 acre property that the town currently owns for open space, and the town property is primarily wetlands. Another aspect of this land being offered is that we would be able to provide access to this land being offered as well as the town land through an access easement off of Sword Street. Currently, the town parcel of land is pretty much landlocked. There's no opportunity to do that. So we are very grateful for this landowner coming forward and offering the gift of land to the town of Shrewsbury. So there would be no cost to the taxpayers, but there would be a large benefit for the residents and others wishing to use this land as open space in the future for passive recreation. And what this article does is it allows for the town meeting to authorize the transfer of land as a gift, and then all of the negotiation related to the terms of the gift timing and whatnot would be in the hands of the select board at a future time. So we will have exhibits within your town meeting packet that shows where the current 32 Old Colony Road Drive land is, where the town parcel is, and where the gift of land would be in addition to where the easement is. So town meeting members could orient themselves and perhaps take a drive down this area before town meeting and before they make their decision.
Great. Thank you. So that brings us to Article 13, which is the final article that's planned for the special town meeting on October 17th. Which is the acquisition of a parcel of land formerly, that was formerly a portion of 12 Chase Terrace. So, Kristen, can you talk a little bit about this piece of land and and what the vision may be for that property if the town acquires it.
Absolutely. It was brought to our attention that this vacant piece of land, which is approximately a little over 5,000 square feet, was coming up on the market. And it is directly adjacent to 1 through 7 Maple Avenue, which is the former Beal property. And throughout the course of our master planning for the town center and for the Beal property, we've done a lot of extensive studies of the need for additional parking in the town center, the need for pedestrian accommodations. We've heard a lot from townspeople that they see Chase Terrace as an area that could use improvement and could be a great linkage from the public parking that will be provided at the Beals property to the town center. So we feel that it's in the best interest of the town to actually acquire this parcel and use it as the benefit of the revitalization of the town center and really lean into those planning processes that we went through over the past 5 years related to the town center. So this article would authorize, if approved by the town meeting, the select board to enter into negotiations to move forward with the purchase of this land. So we don't have a gift of land. This is similar to the previous article. This would be a sale option in that sense.
Great. So, Kristen, you mentioned it was a little less than 5,200 square feet. I mean, if someone else was to purchase the property, is it even developable, or, would it just be left as open land?
Sure, that's a great question. It is quite a small lot. However, with the new town center zoning, the lot could be developed for a single-family home, a duplex, or a very small commercial type of entity. So again, the town feels through staff review, and the Board of Selectmen reviewed this at their most recent, the Select Board, their new name, reviewed this at their most recent meeting, and we feel that it would be in the best interest for the town to actually purchase the land, again, for pedestrian access, pocket parks, and potential few parking spaces.
Okay, great, thank you. So we don't have a specific number yet, but we will be doing work associated with this to ensure that we have a funding model on hand to be able to acquire, otherwise obtain the property, and we'll be able to share that with the Finance Committee when we get to their meeting next Thursday, October 6th. So without further ado, that includes our discussion of the 13-article special town meeting that will be held on October 17th. The next important date for folks to remember is Thursday, October 6th at the Shrewsbury Public Library, where the Finance Committee will hold a public hearing where residents are allowed to come and ask questions and comment to the Finance Committee regarding the articles that have been prepared for town meeting's consideration. So hopefully we'll see you out at those events, if nothing else, to town meeting members on October 17th at the special town meeting. Thank you, everyone.